Welcome, fellow adventurers, to the D&D universe, where we help players, dungeon masters, and beginners have a better understanding of the world and lore of Dungeons & Dragons. Religion plays a very important role in every setting, and devotion to one or many gods has led society to some of its greatest achievements and some of its most tragic failures. In this video, I'll be describing what sort of religious systems can be seen in different settings, as well as describing some of the deities in the Dawn War Pantheon. Monotheism is the faith in a single over-deity, or an all-knowing being who is the sole reason the world exists. With the Christian faith being a prime example of monotheism, you may also consider that an over-deity would have lesser gods serving them. In the Christian faith, the Son of God and the archangels could be considered as less powerful beings than God himself, but ones who hold divine power nonetheless. In a godless setting, there are subtle magical forces tied to matters of conviction and philosophy. In these settings, no prayers are heard, and no worship of a god bears divine fruit. Only devotion to one's ideals brings about these magical forces, and every mortal has the potential to become godlike by their own faith. Animism can be considered one of the more difficult systems to understand and implement due to the infinite number of spirits present in this pantheon. In an animistic setting, every idea and every object is a living thing. Spirits inhabit everything, from pebbles in a creek to the meaning of an uttered phrase. A religious mage in a setting like this, a cleric of light for example, would have to praise and appease the sun itself to gain its favor. The wild gods are an ever-expanding pantheon based solely on worship. Wild gods may sprout up like grass in a devout setting, or lay dormant until a single gathering prays them into existence. These pantheons can envelop any number of gods, as long as there are believers who hold true to them. In a wild setting, a mortal human could become a god if people were to praise his name as if he were one. Wild gods are mortal in a sense compared to other pantheons, because if their believers are wiped out or simply stop praying, those beings would cease to exist. Tight pantheons are represented best in Norse mythology, where the gods' collective will is shared by the faithful. Other examples include the Seven, the 8 Scribes, or the 9 Divines. These gods are not always equal, don't always agree, and in some instances become exiled from worship, but always care for their followers. The best way to understand a tight pantheon is to view it as a family. 2 deities who control all things light and all things dark are referred to as a dualistic pantheon. Good examples of this would be the spirits of yin and yang, karma, and to a minor extent God and Lucifer. Loose pantheons are the most well-known assembly of gods, and probably the best to use in a setting filled with conflict. The gods of a loose pantheon live lives not dissimilar to mortals, tending to domains they're responsible for while having servants and allies spread their ideals. Good examples of these gods include Greek, Celtic, and Egyptian deities. And, of course, the Dawn War deities. Before I delve into their details, I'd like to touch on what types of domains they command, and other potential domains you could apply to these gods. Used in traditional world building for Dungeons & Dragons are the 8 physical domains of nature, tempest, knowledge, war, trickery, death, life, and light. These are the fundamental aspects of the universe that the gods are responsible for. If you're creating your own pantheon, you might also consider using the 6 endless domains of destruction, destiny, despair, desire, delirium, and dream. Or the more broad domains of decay, drama, fabrication, fate, time, distance, and potential. Now that I've detailed their responsibilities, I will describe the gods of the sample pantheon, Dawn War. In order of alignment, I will start with Bahamut, or less commonly pronounced as Bahamut, the platinum dragon god of justice. Bahamut loathes an evil act of any caliber and wages war on those quick to do evil. He is the father of metallic dragons and takes a human form to give wisdom to the good-hearted. Much like Bahamut, Moradin also values wisdom and virtue as highly as gold. The All-Father God of the dwarves encourages the two simple desires of all good dwarves: a strong hearth below your forge and a family warmed by it. Moradin and his followers are forever at war with Grumsh and his orcs. Pelor, the Dawnfather, is perhaps the most widely worshipped deity. His life-giving light shines on the world, gifting farmers good crop and healing the sick. The Shining One's gross incandescence is a source of hope and a beacon of freedom. His servants spread charity and goodwill, but also hunt undead with remarkable zeal. Avandra is the mother of trade and the goddess of change. Above all things, she promotes freedom and loathes safety. Luck alone guides her followers, and she smiles upon those who enact positive change on the world. Corellin Larethian is the creator of elves and patron of all things in elf values. His wisdom and creativity are granted to all artists, including the arcane arts. Corellon shares Moradin's hatred of orcs, but holds a special loathing for the drow. Sehanine Moonbow can be considered a sister goddess of Corellon, but is more closely connected to the Fae. The goddess of the moon reflects the light of Pelor, and sheds his light against the undead who walk the night. The goddess of dreams holds as many secrets as the night sky, and commands divination and illusion. Erathis, the lawbearer, is the goddess of civilization. She promotes united work toward a single goal, and sets in place the laws to keep her followers undistracted and ever moving forward. The ancient goddess of death cast away her true name, and is now only known as the Raven Queen. She and her followers are dedicated to a single cause, the natural ending of mortal life. We are all destined to die and fade away, and anyone who would attempt to stray from that path must be set back to the natural course. Ion is the goddess of knowledge, and simply that. She detests hiding knowledge from those who would seek it, and greatly favors research as opposed to practice. Those who worship Ion work tirelessly to preserve knowledge, lest they slip beneath the sands of time. Melora, the Wild Mother, is the goddess who watches and protects nature in its purest forms. Worshippers of Melora see both civilization and aberrations in a similar light, as abominations. Wood elves, rangers, fishermen, and anyone else who would brave the wild pray for her protection and guidance. Kord is the barbaric god of power, both in nature and in creatures. Well-placed strikes of both lightning and blades bring great pleasure to the brawling god. In some campaigns, his alignment is closer to good, representing focused power as opposed to reckless fury. Asmodeus is the dark god of tyrannical control. He is the undisputed king of the 9 hells of Bator, known for his ambition and cruel dispositions. His name and nature are derived from the real-world Book of Tobit. Much less direct, but perhaps more ambitious than Asmodeus is Bane, the god of war and conquest. If Bane and his worshippers were to succeed in any of their plans, the world would be set ablaze. The wicked sister goddess of Bahamut is Tiamat, the greedy queen of chromatic dragons. Her greed and lust for eternal wealth risked setting the world off balance, and inspired a cult to ravage and hoard massive wealth to appease her. Torog is a truly evil deity who delights in simple pleasures, torture and slavery. The crawling king of the Underdark represents all the more menacing aspects of the Underdark itself and the cruelty that has shaped its people. Once a mortal sorcerer, the Lich god of undeath is perhaps one of the most truly wicked gods not by nature, but by choice. Vecna directly opposes all other gods, and would see them cast into oblivion given the opportunity. He is most well known for his artifacts, the 2 pieces of his body that were left behind upon his ascension. Not as ambitious as Bane, and not quite as admirable as Kord, is Grumsh, the god of wanton destruction. The Cyclops god of the orcs commands all his children to multiply, raid, and take. Grumsh is truly the savage god of savage people, and wages a destructive war on all other races. Much like Grumsh and Torog, Lolth is responsible for a stain on the Underdark known as the Drow. The malicious and cruel Spider Queen favors female followers to men, and is worshipped highly by assassins who are adept in spinning webs of lies. The crazed god of madness, Therisdun, seeks to undo all that is or ever will be. Being controlled by astral demons, he planted the seed that would later become the infinite abyss. This crime has cast him into exile, and his demons drove him to pure madness. What few followers he has seek to set him free. The great god of darkness and poison, Zahir, is the patron of nearly every assassin. His methods are methodical, but the results are definite. His worshippers are promised great wealth with success, and great punishment with failure. Among some of his most zealous priests are Yuan-ti. Thank you, adventurers, for joining me on this journey through religion, and I hope you better understand the forces that shape your worlds.